Alright guys, HyDra back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Ghosty's revealed he is particularly excited to play against the Green Wall next season, looking potentially for some revenge on his OpTic Texas team, but also just excited in general to be the underdog and play against a crowd that will not be necessarily wanting him to win this series. Will this work out well for Los Angeles Thieves, given that OpTic on paper should be a top 2 team going into the upcoming season, and Thieves aren't in that category after making the roster changes they have done? Very much intrigued to your perspective in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Dashy just flops quads here. I think he was playing 2-5 online. I think that's what he said in the replies. So, yeah, fair play. You better want some decent money on this hand, I suppose. Now, also, we're 1 week away from the off-season 2, so the Black Ops 2 throwback tournament that ran last year. Killers there this year. Of course, it's Scump versus Nadeshot first round, so very much looking forward to that one. Speaking of Scump, actually, there was an interesting clip that came out the other day from Dashy talking about Scump's search and destroy prowess and why Scump was so good at search in the time that he was teaming together with Scump. Scump and Dashy as a duo from pretty much Black Ops 4 onwards until Scump retired, pretty much. And it's interesting, right, because he says that, I guess, during Black Ops 4 and stuff, they played a lot with TJ Halley. So TJ, Dashy, Scump, they played a lot of search and destroy channels, and Scump got really good at search. I think this is interesting because the perception of Scump as a player back in the day was not that he was particularly good at search, but actually the numbers. He always was pretty good at search, but it's just in the later half of his career on especially the Cold War season, that was his standout game mode. So, you know, I don't know if you guys agree with what Dashy's saying here, but I thought it was pretty interesting to hear.
Seth wasn't great at search. No, Seth was hella good at search, bro. Bugging. I think, like, honestly, I think ever since me and Teej joined, like, we just started playing OLTs with Seth, and I think we were like a 3v3 team, bro. And obviously we would play with like Porter whenever he was there, and then Damon rarely. I don't think Damon really played with us like in the S&D tours off the rip, but I remember for the first month, me, Teej, and Seth, like we played every 3v3 together, bro. And I think him playing with Teej was low-key kind of like a really good, like a blessing in disguise for his like S&D game, because then he was like watching like someone like Teej and like how like what works for him in S&D and like how he's kind of like what plays he's making and how much like because Seth really never had like a sub duo that was like I guess aggressive, you know what I mean? There was always someone that was like filling that role, because Damon, Porter, and Matt are kind of like, well, I guess like Porter and Matt are more like ARs at heart. Damon's like a flex, but Damon's not like a sub at heart, you know what I'm saying? No bullshit. I think like ever since I teamed with Seth, bro, I feel like he was always like hella good at search, bro.
So this, for example, are like Scump's cards back in the Advanced Warfare days. I know that Lineman made these retroactively or retrospectively, whatever. But so yeah, so these are Scump's numbers, right? And his performance in the respawns was so good. I think the main reason why Scump's search and destroy wasn't considered to be that good was just because the OpTic Dynasty in general wasn't really a search and destroy team. Their S&D win rate was maybe, we're talking Advanced Warfare and Black Ops 3 here, because Infinite Warfare, S&D might as well have been called TDM. I mean, you literally just run around the map as a 4 and just played for gunfights, and especially maps like Crusher and stuff, it was outrageous how bad search and destroy played. But you would, even on defense, you would just 4-hit A and just see what happened. Like, that was a viable strategy, and OpTic, understandably, were really good at search and destroy that game, because it was just gun skill. There was no brain required really, apart from in 1v1 situations, but like Karma 1 against Fastballer. But you know, OpTic's search and destroy win rate that year was like 70-75%. Like, I think their best game mode in IW was pretty much S&D, whereas in the other games, Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, that took a little bit more brain, to be honest. That wasn't necessarily the OpTic Dynasty's strengths. They were just, I mean, they obviously were smart players, but their gun skill was their prowess, and they would win like 55-60% of their search and destroy. So that's AW Black Ops 3, but it was the respawns. Like, they would win like 80% of hard points. It was just ridiculous. And that's really where Scump's you know, numbers came into his own. His Advanced Warfare season here, 1.21, 1.26 in CTF and uplink across that season. And you know, we can see even some numbers here. This is Season 2 stats, Scump at a 1.22 overall, 1.21 in hard points, and then 1.2 in search, but then a 1.4 in uplink and CTF respectively, right? So that was kind of, Scump's S&D wasn't considered to be crazy good just because people didn't really focus on OpTic search and destroy. And it was even a similar thing to like the Complexity Dynasty at times. They were good teams during the complexity era that could win a search and destroy off them. Like, you know, I'm thinking teams that maybe strictly business, but there were rosters that were good at search and destroy. But Aches and the complexity guys like, we don't care about search. We're just going to smoke you in the respawn modes. Often that's what would happen. And with the OpTic Dynasty, it was like they'd win map 1 guaranteed. And whether they win map 2 or 3 doesn't matter because they're going to close out the series in 4. So, you know, OpTic's or Scump search and destroy kind of was considered to have taken a back seat to some extent. And to be fair, in the years where Scump wasn't as good, let's say World War II was probably his worst season, which is this lineman card, his search and destroy wasn't great. He had a 0.99 that season in search and destroy. The respawns were a little bit better. But in his, well, so kind of towards the end of his career, his search and destroy did get a lot better. It's kind of a question as to whether his search and destroy got better or whether, like, just the OpTic Dynasty not appearing anymore and Scump maybe dropping off in the respawn somewhat allowed the search and destroy kind of talent that he's always had to come out. It's a little bit unclear. But yeah, definitely Cold War, search and destroy was Scump's best mode, and people are like, damn, Scump's crazy good at search now. But I feel like he's always been pretty good at search. It's just, you know, it was on display more so on those couple of years of his career. So I thought that was pretty interesting to hear what Dashy had to say on that. But speaking of Dashy, of course, we know that the end of this most recent season was very interesting behind the scenes between Dashy and Ghosty. It was well known that Hook was going to go and Pred was probably going to be the man. There was early days talks that Drazah and Envoy were going to come in, but I think it was pretty clear that Pred was the guy they wanted. They got the deal done, and that's how their team went forward. Kenny, of course, coming in place of Ghosty, and pretty much a one-man swap has occurred there, right? With Ghosty going to Thieves and Kenny going the other way to OpTic Texas. Now, a lot of OpTic fans said at the time that they weren't happy with this, right? They wanted Ghosty to stay. Some OpTic fans, I'm sure, still feel that way. I know that many OpTic fans, having heard a lot of the commentary around Kenny and some of Kenny's thoughts on it, are pretty happy with the direction that OpTic have taken. And I think, personally, this might be the right call. Ghosty did really well, but I think that, you know, bringing in some sort of veteran leadership presence like Kenny with all the success and accolades that he's got just makes too much sense not to make that move, I think. But still, Ghosty, undoubtedly, as any competitor would, will want to beat those guys next season if he gets the opportunity to. And look, he doesn't come at them directly in this clip and say, all right, Dashy, you'll go down type thing, but he does say that he's looking forward to just playing COD in general, but he is especially looking forward to playing against the Green Wall, because in that situation, he'll be on the underdog team. The fans will be against him, I guess. I'm sure some fans will be kind of wanting Ghosty's team to do well from OpTic because they liked him a lot, in kind of the same way that when Formal left the OpTic Dynasty and went to LG, a lot of OpTic fans were like, well, I still want OpTic to win and Scump and everything, but if OpTic don't win, then I'll support Formal and Luminosity, stuff like that, as it was back then. So I feel like maybe some OpTic fans will be in a similar boat there, but nonetheless, they want to play each other. I do also think the clip where at the end of this, Ghosty says he is looking forward to having some more freedom was kind of interesting in the way that the OpTic team was set up last year.
Who are we excited to play next season? Are we on smoke? Or
off camera, yeah.
Off camera.
Off camera.
Yeah, because you never want to say it on camera and then it comes back and bites you in the arse.
Well, yeah. You can't like try to speak something into existence on camera, or else it'll never come into
All right, we'll
existence.
just go one by one. What team are you excited to play?
What team am I excited to play? I mean, instinctually, I just want to say all of them. I'm just excited to play CDL COD again.
Such a boring answer, bro.
I'll do it.
Listen.
I'll do it. All right, let me do it. Nah, actually, you can explain to me.
I wouldn't want to go against the Green Wall either, to be fair. I wouldn't, to be fair. I wouldn't want to go against the Green Wall.
I just want to play, well, I like being an underdog, and I love being rooted against, so
yeah,
I feel like playing OpTic will be very fun for me. So there's that, but I just like playing the game. I love COD. I enjoy competitive environments, so I'm just excited to play my first match, whoever it is against. I mean, I'm just excited for a new year. It's always very fun to play a new COD. Normally, you end up having a new team, regardless of pro, challengers, just kind of how it works. Everyone wants to get better. So I'm looking forward to getting better every day with these guys. I'm looking forward to having a little bit more personal freedom on the map. And I think that this year coming up will be a very good year, especially for our team.
So no surprises really that Ghosty wants to play against the OpTic guys for the new season, but yeah, what do you guys think about that perspective on I'm looking forward to having more freedom as a player? Because Ghosty was brought in to pretty much fill a gap last season on OpTic. nobody, well, not many people expected it to really work, right? They had the conversations when they were bringing Ghosty in, they talked to Parasite, they talked to others, Dashy then had a convo with him, they decided to make the move and bring him in, but Ghosty was brought in not to play the role that he was playing in Challenges. In Challenges, he was dropping a 1.3 in the Boston Challengers Open, being a big slayer on the AR role, and he was brought into OpTic not to do that, because Dashy is the AR slayer, so he was coming in to fill the gaps, to do the communication, do the leadership type stuff, and did a really good job in that role. So maybe that's what he is kind of alluding to here, is that he's looking forward to effectively being let off the leash a little bit and playing the role that he would like to play, which is more of like an AR Slayer type role, and then Cammy can do some of the other stuff. Because I feel like Ghosty was, he's a better player than his numbers showed last season. I think people knew his value based on how the team did, but Ghosty's numbers last year weren't anything crazy. To be fair, they weren't too dissimilar to Kenny's in some respects, but I think Ghosty can drop better numbers if the team is set up as such, but obviously the team wasn't set up around Ghosty last year, it was set up around the rest of the guys, and Ghosty was filling the gaps. But if Ghosty's kind of been almost selected as their star AR, then we might have an even more effective version of Ghosty, which is interesting to think about. But nonetheless, you've got to wonder, where are OpTic going to line up next season with respect to this Los Angeles Thieves team? Because I've said for a little bit now that I do believe that the Thieves team of the other rosters that aren't these four that Viper Gaming again put together here, I do generally think that Thieves might have the best chance to be quite good. The ceiling on the Thieves roster is actually, I think, pretty high. There are just some questions about the Cammy stuff and all this. But, like, these four should be really good. And I was having some chats with people yesterday about, like, who's going to come out on top this season. Because let's not forget, FaZe have been #1 in the CDL standings 4 years in a row. They're going for 5 from 5. And it might be the full house, you know, because who knows what happens with the CDL after this season as far as I'm concerned. But, like, Toronto should be good, New York should be good, OpTic really should be good, you know. Like, there is no excuses for this team not to be spectacular. Like, it really should be OpTic versus FaZe for the #1 team. And FaZe will probably win #1, like, in the standings, because they just always tend to do, and their team is really good on paper here, unless there's any internal friction. OpTic should be right up there, like, it has to be. And then, Toronto and New York also should be very competitive. Outside of that, though, it's kind of tough to say. Obviously, 3 of the teams, we have no idea. Seattle, Surge, don't really make that much sense. Minnesota Rocker, I'm not particularly impressed by. And, yeah, we don't know what Ravens are going to do. Although I do still quite like this theoretical team here that Viper Gamers put together. We thought might go under Los Angeles Grillers, maybe not. My understanding was that people expected Los Angeles Grillers to be the next team to move, but I actually now think that Vegas might be the next team to move. I'm not exactly sure, but there's been various rumors on which team is going to, like, move next in Rostermania, and I think it might be Vegas, but there's a lot to be said on that, I guess. But of these teams, what's the likeliest team? And honestly, I think the Thieves have, in terms of ceiling, they might have the best, apart from, like, Boston. I think the Boston ceiling is really good as well, but I can just see them taking a little bit longer. Like, I think of these 4 teams, the Boston team is my favorite in terms of how good I think it's going to do in, like, an average placing perspective, but I do think Thieves has more upside than people are giving them credit for right now, and Ghosty could be a big part of that. So very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Just a little bit of CDL trivia here to close out the video with, as they say, which of these players, TJ, HyDra, Drazah, and Temp, did not have a flawless game during 2023, which is kind of interesting because TJ, I remember vividly, he went 12-0 flawless on Moscow Search and Destroy back in Cold War, but I was like, did he do so this year? Turns out he did. And I do remember a Drazah flawless game. It might have been on Embassy Search this year, I think that he had one. Temp, I couldn't remember. Turns out the answer is actually HyDra. Temp and TJ both on the 10th of March, and Drazah on the 31st of March had a flawless game. HyDra did not, but of course, he won't mind too much about that. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.